You guys, look at the stick fort I built a few months ago. Oh my God, hi, welcome back to Retired Creations. And if you're new here, just welcome in general. I'm Allie. I am the creator and artist behind Retired Creations, which is an offshoot of my bicycle inner tube jewelry business that I started 13 years ago. So just starting this YouTube channel journey with me. I'm so grateful you're here. On today's episode, we're going to be covering some basic tutorials on real simple designs just to get you started on making some bicycle inner tube jewelry. I figure the more of us, the better. The more recycling, the better. Freaking awesome. Anyways, the first style we're going to be making is just this little gradiated lines here. They are so awesome because they actually shape to the natural curvature of your body after you wear them for a while, which is super fun about them. And then we're also going to be making these meditation circles. I also am going to be covering some of the basic tools you need to get started, and then sprinkling some tips in on how to start your very own YouTube. So I think the most important tip that I have learned so far is that you really need to niche down. And I'm still kind of trying to figure that out, but since I've been making bike tire jewelry for so long, it only made sense to just go with that. And I love designing things and making them beautiful and giving them another life. My most recent job was as a hospice nurse, and I feel like there's so much correlation between hospice and recycling. When you're recycling, you're giving something, or upcycling, excuse me, when you're upcycling, you're giving something like a new, beautiful life just to give them honor and beauty at the end of their cycle. And what a fun way to do it is making jewelry for other people. Let's dive right into the tutorial. These are going to be some of the basic tools that you're going to need for this tutorial, including a craft mat, a sharp 4 to 6 inch scissors, a metal ruler. I suggest architecture ruler just so you can protect your fingers, rotary blade with handle, leather rotary hole punch or 3mm single hole punch, jewelry pliers, jump ring opener tool, and then all the findings for earrings. These are the styles that we're going to be working on today. So let's get started. Here's a picture of all the tools you can grab. Most of these can be bought at the $1.25 store. That little Betty right there is a rotary cutting table, which is an upgrade from the ruler, the mat, and the rotary blade. It's an excellent investment. If you plan on doing this long term, I suggest getting one of these beauties. They make your life super simple. So let's talk about sourcing tubes. Bike tubes are super duper easy to source, and they're super awesome to save from the landfill because they do not biodegrade very quickly, which in a future episode we're going to talk about the benefits of recycling and how quickly some things degrade and how quickly some things don't degrade. So anyways, sourcing bike tubes is super easy. If you have a local bike shop, you are definitely going to be able to get tubes from them. Maybe not at all times of the year, but if you leave your number with them, if they don't have any, they'll probably call you if they have some extras. But always great, you can call ahead and see if they have any, or just stop right into your local bike shop and ask them if they have tubes that you can help save from the trash. And they're normally 100% on board with that adventure. Another place you can find them as well that I have found them myself is that my husband's a super big mountain biker and goes to downhill mountain bike parks. And oftentimes on the trash bins there, people kind of set them off to the side just so they aren't directly thrown in the trash, because they know there are people out there that use them for a lot of things. Like they work as great rubber bands in the garage, just cut into little strips, little circles. Those are some of my ideas on where I've had great success finding tubes. If you have any other ideas that you have for finding tubes, let me know. Put a little message down in the comments and tell me where you found your tubes. I hope that answers some questions on where to source tubes. If you do have any other questions, though, please leave a question in the comment. I'm happy to answer and engage. I hope you all are ready to get into recycling some bike tires. And by recycling, I mean upcycling. Yeah, because these go up and not on the ground. You know what I mean? Up in the ears, not on the tires. Presenting the star of the show, bicycle inner tubes. Let's get these Betties cleaned up. All right, first we're going to start by cutting the valve stem off. Give us an idea if we have any slime inside this tube. I don't typically work with slime tubes. They're kind of a pain in the butt to clean. Yay, no slime. Let's take a look at some of the details on the tube. We have some printing, some cool extra lines. I like to intentionally cut around these pieces to include them in my designs. So we'll start by cutting between 6 and 8 inch strips of tube. This is kind of going to be based on your cutting mat, what your cutting mat can support, because it cannot go longer than your cutting mat. So once we have all of those little sections cut up, we'll notice the tube has a top curve and a bottom curve to it. I like to cut on the bottom part of the curve here. Just gives me a little bit of a flatter work surface. And then once I have those tubes cut open, you'll notice that there is like a little powdery substance in there. Most tubes have this powdery substance in there. Some have more, some have less. This is a pretty average amount of powder. So usually I'll make sure and clean this off pretty good with some dish soap, scrub it in real good. And then when I'm rinsing it, I like to stretch it out a little bit just to make sure it's getting out of those pores, because sometimes if you don't clean it well enough, it becomes a little hazy. So give it a little stretch, and then let's dry these off and get these guys ready for an adventure in becoming earrings. So let's grab our ruler, our craft mat, and our rotary cutter. Lay the tube strip right on the craft mat. We're going to be cutting about 1/4 inch sections. We want to make sure that we're holding the rotary cutter right against the hard edge of the ruler. I really like the architecture ruler because it keeps the fingers protected. Once we have these 1/4 inch sections cut, we're going to get these ready to line up on a line here to get edge cleaned up so they're even. I cut these into 4, 3, 2, and 1 inch sections. I don't necessarily cut them in chronological order. I like to be able to see if some other sections will fit in that aren't necessarily that measurement. And if they do, I'll include them in the design just as long as they're gradiated. So you'll see here I poke one in. Doesn't fit, kind of the same length, so that's got to come out. So then we'll take the tubes and stack them up with the longest on the bottom and the shortest on the top, making sure one of the ends is lined up nice and even so we can punch a hole in them with our rotary hole punch. And when I am punching with that, I'm punching with a really firm grip and then pulling down on the material and clearing the hole out so that the jump ring goes in that nice hole we just made super smooth. So once I have the jump ring in, then I'm going to put the ear wire in. And these are a pair of earrings that we want to make sure we're focusing on the orientation of the earrings. So on one side, the gradiated pieces will face to the right, and on one side they'll face to the left, and that way you'll have an even pair. And once I have the ear wires on, I put them on the card. Once I have them on the card, then I can style them a little bit more on the ends. I like to cut a pointed tip on the end of mine. You could do a diagonal tip, you could do a rounded tip, but I really like the stylized design that is not the flat end. And so once we have our little points cut, we have ourselves a pair of fancy pants, upcycled bicycle inner tubes that shape to your neck as you wear them. So here we have our rotary cutter. This will save you a ton of time. This is a super accurate cutting machine. It's about $50, link in the description. Move the material right to the edge of my cutting surface, and it makes a really uniform cut every single time. And so once I have these cut, then I'm going to set them up the same way. We're going to be doing the gradiated circles design here. I set them up the same way as I do for the feather design and get them all cut out, line them up the same, punch the very first hole the same, with the exception I put the jump ring in the hole. Notice here I'm lining them up real good. Get that hole punch pulling down on that material and clearing that hole residue out. Boom, see that? All right, nice clean hole. Putting my jump ring in here now. And then the difference is here is then I'm going to line the opposite end up. Once I have that jump ring closed, just holding those together, taking my back piece, lining it up with the following pieces, punching my hole. Nice and straight. I want it to look really clean and polished at the top there. So I got my hole punched. Watch me clear that whole pieces out again. Very nice. And then we're going to open our jump ring back up and then just secure the other end right in there. And then we can just put our ear wire on straight away, not having to pay attention to orientation of the ear wire this time because they're the same front and back and left and right. So there we have it, a finished meditation circle earring. Cool. We're going to just go through this one more time, a little bit slower so you can kind of see the details of it. I get all my materials ready, line my ends up real nice and straight, pull down on that material, put my jump ring in, line the other end up real nice, and then get that hole puncher. Remember, pull down on that material a little bit, and then open the jump ring, put the opposite ends on the jump ring, and then you can put your ear wire on and card it. There we have two super simple designs today. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Retired Creation, where we did some basic designs, covered some basic tools, and a couple of YouTube tips. In next episode, you can expect to cover the basics of YouTube tips like niching down, equipment you'll need to get started, some of the plans you need to make. Really, starting messy is the best way to start and learn along the way. I happen to have a little bit of a background in photography and a little bit of photo retouching. It's been a really long time, but I feel like I do have that to my advantage. But I did find that editing has been really freaking hard and a lot of work. So I have a lot of learning to do, and I'm excited you're here for the ride. So I'll see you in the next episode where we cover all sorts of fun YouTube tips. Until then, so grateful. Keep it light. I'll catch you in the next one. Comment, like, subscribe, share. Ooh, thank you.